Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, the Kentucky legislature is back in session. They'll be proposing and passing new laws from now until mid-April. So we're going to be keeping you up to date on what's going on up there and what you can do about it. This week, we're going to be looking at 10 new laws that have been proposed, including one which would extend the governor's term to 5 years. I think you'll find that one very interesting. If you would like to contact any of your legislators on the bills we're talking about, whether you're for them or against them, then I have a link to all of the email addresses for the state legislature right in the description of this video. So if you contact them, remember to be brief, be courteous, and ask them to contact you back with what they will be doing. So let's look at these 10 bills. This week, we'll look at some from the Senate, and next week, we'll probably look at some bills from the House. First of all, there is Senate Bill 5. This is by State Senator Gex Williams, and this really is correcting something which was done inappropriately last year, in my opinion. Last year, they passed a law and says, if you've got farmland of 5 acres or more, then you have to pay to get a hunting or fishing license to hunt or fish on your own property. Well, this bill would get rid of that. Saying if you don't have to get a hunting or fishing license to do this on your own property. So it's a great bill, Senate Bill 5, correcting a problem from last year. It is very similar in language to Senate Bill 55. They do similar things. The next bill, number 2, is Senate Bill 6 by State Senator Mike Wilson. And this has to do with Kentucky colleges and universities. It is saying that the students and employees, teachers and others, don't have to come out and say that they're supporting this radical leftist DEI movement. DEI is an acronym that stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a radical leftist agenda. And there's been a lot of those on the left who are in our universities and colleges that are forcing the teachers and students to support this in order to pass the class, to get promoted, to get hired, whatever. This bill would protect those people from having to do that. Now let's talk about Senate Bill 10. This is the one that has a governor having a 5-year term. And I am for this bill. Now, some people are like, what in the world? Let me explain what's going on here. Right now, under Kentucky's law currently, we have elections for governor and all the other statewide offices like Attorney General, Secretary of State. We have those on odd-numbered years. Like just here last November, 2023, we elected them. But it would be a lot better for the state if we were to move these elections to even-numbered years. This way, we won't have elections 3 out of 4 years. If this law passes, Senate Bill 10 will only have elections every other year. And the governor's election, it just happened. It's going to happen the next time in 2027. This law would say whoever wins next time's governor election, the 2027 election, that governor will have a 5-year term, and that will reset everything to even-numbered years. This would also allow the governor and all of the statewide offices to be elected on the same time that there's the presidential election. This is going to save the state hundreds of thousands of dollars from having to run a separate election cycle. I think it will help voters be more participating instead of having election fatigue. This will require a constitutional change. So the legislature can put it on the ballot, but the people are going to have to approve it. So this is Senate Bill 10 by State Senator Christian McDaniel. I like this one, and we'll see if it gets any traction. Next is Senate Bill number 22 by State Senator Whitney Westerfield. Right now, under Kentucky law, if you're called for jury duty, you get a whopping $7.50 a day to serve in jury duty, to work all day long. This is a paltry sum, and it really needs to be changed. So this law would change that to say you get $125 a day. I think we are well past what other states are paying their jurors. So personally, I think this is a good one. I had jury duty last year, so I wish there would have been like a retroactive clause. There's not, but I still think it's probably a good bill. Now let's look at Senate Bill number 23 by State Senator Michael Nemes. And this would say that when you turn 65 years old or older, whenever you turn 65, your primary residence, your property tax freezes at that level and does not continue to increase as years go by. So I think that'd be good for our senior citizens. I actually think they shouldn't have property tax at all. I think that is inappropriate, but this is a step in the right direction. So a good step, though I wish they would go farther. Senate Bill 23. Now let's look at Senate Bill 39. I really like this one. This may be the most important one we've seen yet. This is by State Senator Adrian Southworth. Right now, under Kentucky law, lobbyist organizations and the lobbyists themselves are prohibited from giving to campaigns and to politicians during the legislative cycle. So that way it says, well, you can't influence legislation. However, 1 minute after the legislature is out of session, they're allowed to give money. This law would say, no, you're not. And it would make a permanent prohibition where lobbyists and these lobbying organizations are not allowed to donate to the politicians' campaigns. This is great, and it would really reduce a lot of this special interest influence. Senate Bill 39, a good bill. Now let's talk about one that I think is just a little off the wall here. This is Senate Bill number 41, proposed by State Senator Denise Harper Angel. And this would say that if you own a pet store, you are no longer to allow to sell dogs or cats. If you are a pet breeder, you're no longer allowed to sell dogs or cats, unless the only ones you can sell are ones that come from shelters, and you're just kind of highlighting them in your place of business. Don't get me wrong. Whenever we adopt dogs, and we've done it many times over the years, I always get one from the shelter. However, I think this ought to be something the people are allowed to decide and not have government deciding where I can get my dog and my cat from. Another example of government interference in the people's lives. Let's talk about Senate Bill number 42. This is by State Senator Reginald Thomas. He proposes changing the minimum wage in Kentucky up to $15 an hour. I've talked about it multiple times on the program. This is a horrible idea. First of all, you ought to let the market decide what is the wage, the going wage. And if you're paying somebody who has no skills, no experience, no training whatsoever, $15 an hour, then you get somebody who actually has training or experience. They're going to require and demand more than 15, and is a recipe for massive inflation, which seems to be the Democrats' favorite thing, is how can I start inflation today? I'm sure they wake up each night, go to sleep each night wondering how can I do this, and each morning they wake up with new ideas on how to start inflation. Well, let's talk about Senate Bill 51 by State Senator Gerald Neal. And this is saying that he wants to increase bureaucracy and government expansion. He wants to create a new board for licensing people who are going to do music therapy. Now, I'm not too sure who uses music therapy, but right now, I guess you can have anybody who can play an instrument come in and say, well, I'll give you some therapy. But he wants to create a board and have this board have power to make regulations enforceable by state government on music therapy. I think this is unneeded. Again, government expansion. If somebody's good at this, they'll get business. If they're bad at it, they won't. I often wonder why the government's requiring licenses for so many things. Like, I don't understand the ones where they say cosmetologists have to have a license. Maybe somebody can explain to me why. It seems like if you were a good one, you would get business. And if you're bad at it, you simply would go out of business. But that's what's going on, wanting to expand that. He has another bill, Senate Bill number 56, which is an anti-gun law. It would say that you have to lock up your gun. It can't be opened without some kind of a key or combination, or has to be rendered unable to be fired. And if you do not do this, then you will be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. It doesn't say if the gun is then used in a crime or for anything wrong, just if I left the house without locking it up, you are then guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. This is a horrible law, but we got some good ones, we got some crazy ones, and we got some bad ones here. Don't forget, whichever bills that you are for or against, make sure you contact your legislators, being brief, courteous, and asking them to contact you back on what they're going to do about it. Each week, I like to mention where I'm going to be speaking or preaching out in the next week. This coming Tuesday, January the 9th, I'll be speaking at a pastor's conference over in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Starts at 10 o'clock, and even if you are or are not a pastor, I'm sure you'd be welcome to come and to join us that day. And something else I want to invite you to join us is now that the legislature is back in session, I want to invite different Patriot groups to come up to the Capitol sometime. Bring your Patriot group, your homeschool group, your school group, and let me show you around the Kentucky Capitol. It's a great way to learn Kentucky history, and we'll set aside time to try to meet with your senator and your representative, a wonderful way for you to stay involved and in contact with those who are representing you in making Kentucky law. Tours are absolutely free. I don't charge a cent for it. If you'd like to see about arranging one for your group, just send me an email at lee.watts.kentucky@gmail.com. Well, that's what we have this week. We'll be keeping an eye on the different laws and updating you each and every week on what is going on. So until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.